What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another New York Giants video. And folks, we have a lot to catch up on as far as the New York football Giants go. It's been a crazy day. I'm still on vacation here in Florida, but the grind continues with these videos. Finally got some good Wi-Fi reception, so this is great. Just going to talk for a few minutes about what's been going on. I know around 4 or 5 o'clock today, transactions just went haywire for Big Blue. So I'm going to recap those and what my thoughts and opinions are on each of those moves and what it means for Big Blue with the coming days, with Cut Down Day looming next Tuesday, August 30th. But before I dive into that, folks, if you haven't already and you're watching us for the first time, make sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms below. Ring the bell for notifications for our YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. You could also check us out on Instagram and Twitter for live updates at Big Blue Avenue. Appreciate everybody. And this podcast is also presented by BetUS. Sign up with our promo code there below at Join125. Again, that is Join125. Get a 125% sign-up bonus. Enjoy your live betting with America's #1 favorite sportsbook. Now, the big news of the day. We're going to start with some positive news. The Giants activating wide receiver Sterling Shepard. And I know a lot of people, including myself, are ecstatic that Sterling Shepard is not going to miss significant time of the 2022 season. He passed his physical. He's dealt with a torn Achilles for the last 8 months. Yesterday, when the Giants moved Matt Pert and Nick Gates to the reserve pup list, Sterling Shepard was not, which led me to believe that he might be ready in time for the season, and it turns out to be true. Moved from the pup list, Kadarius Toney likely moving back to the slot. Shepard will be on the outside across from Kenny Golladay. Again, though, the Giants' offense already looks much different from last season, but having Shep back is huge. The longest tenured Giant entering his 7th season with the New York football Giants back at practice today. So that's the good news, that Sterling Shepard is back. Now for the bad news. A guy who was getting a lot of first-team reps for the Giants in Shepard's absence, Collin Johnson, has torn his Achilles and is out for the entire season. Tore his right Achilles, done for the year, placed on injured reserve already. This is a brutal injury, because I loved Collin Johnson. Ever since the Giants claimed him last year, right after cutdown day on September 1st from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Johnson was looking good to make the 53-man roster. He received first-team reps with Toney and Shep both sidelined. He had 10 catches for 123 yards in just 2 preseason games. And it just sucks because head coach Brian Daboll even mentioned that, Collin Johnson wasn't just in the mix to make the team. He was in the mix to play, to get playing time. And I think he was posed for a potential, not breakout season, but a season where he can contribute, catch 20, 30 balls maybe, because we know the injury history with 3 of the Giants' top wide receivers, and Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, and Kadarius Toney. Not to mention the other receiver is a rookie in Wan'Dale Robinson. So Collin Johnson, that big 6'6" presence, is going to be missed. And it's a shame that he's done for the year, but I hope he comes back stronger and better next offseason and makes the Giants 2023 squad. Now, what does this mean for the rest of the receiving core? Well, we saw Alex Bachman break out in week 2 of the preseason. There's been a lot of questions surrounding Darius Slayton, if he's going to get cut. Following this injury to Johnson still, I'm not so sure yet. I think Slayton won't make the team. Slayton's projected to make north of $2.5 million this year, and the Giants need money to operate during the regular season. So cutting Darius Slayton would ultimately make a lot of sense, right? Now, I do think when you're looking at the Giants receiving core right now, it's pretty obvious to me who the top 4 are. You have Kenny Golladay. You have Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, who's number 5? Well, with Collin Johnson out of the picture, leads me to believe that David Sills is now the number 5 receiver, because he was mentioned in that quote by Brian Daboll that he was in the mix to play. And when you go out there and catch 5 catches for over 50 yards in a preseason game, and Daniel Jones always knows where to find David Sills. I mean, he's making overhead catches, perfect route running. I mean, he has to make the football team this year. I think it's finally David Sills' year to make the initial 53-man roster and be wide receiver number 5 following this injury. Slayton, I don't think he's going to make the team. I think he's going to get cut ultimately. I don't think the Giants will be able to find a trade partner for him due to his value, and he's been dealing with an injury during preseason, so not looking good for him. Also, apparently Alex Bachman left practice with a toe injury today. There were a couple conflicting reports about that. I'm not so sure the significance of the injury. It sounds like it could possibly be a turf toe issue. I really want Alex Bachman to play against the Jets because from the way it's looking, Dable wants Bachman to play even more reps in this upcoming game against the Jets. Maybe he'll get in there earlier if he's able to play. But I hope Bachman's good to go. He's fighting for a roster spot. That wide receiver 6, Richie James, is definitely in the lead right now. I know Dable spoke highly of him. I was told that James is a lock to make it over Bachman. I do not think that's true by any means. I get it. James had a touchdown in the New England game, but if there's a chance they carry 7, Bachman is probably number 7 at this point due to the injuries because the Giants also moved Marcus Kemp to IR today as well. He was another receiver the Giants were had in their rotation in the offseason, training camp, preseason stages. And what the Giants did today was they claimed 2 former Baltimore Raven wide receivers off of waivers. This includes Jaylon Moore and Bailey Gaither. I think it's Gaither, not Gaithers. But obvious connections to Wink, even though Wink is a defensive coordinator. These guys are receivers who have at least Jaylon Moore has a connection with Wink because he was on the team the last 2 seasons. Gaither was only on the Ravens, 85-man roster, 90-man roster this past off season. But to get into Jaylon Moore a little bit, he's 25, undrafted free agent out of Tennessee Martin back in 2020, spent each of the previous 2 seasons on Baltimore's practice squad. 5'11", $190. He missed 5 games last year due to injury, but he was having a strong camp and making a convincing case for Baltimore's number 5 receiving job until they went out and signed Demarcus Robinson. So Jaylon Moore is now in Big Blue for the time being. Expect to see him out there in the final preseason game against the Jets. And the other name is Bailey Gaither. I think both of these players are upgrades over Marcus Kemp, in my opinion. Gaither is 25 as well, 6 foot, 190, similar build out of San Jose State, UDFA in 2021 by the Green Bay Packers, but retired just a week into training camp. Came out of retirement in 2022, so this year he played for the Pittsburgh Maulers of the USFL, and right when the season ended, he signed with the Ravens. He played well enough to get a spot there. So Johnson and Kemp head to IR. The 2 reinforcements there are Jaylon Moore and Bailey Gaither. Now, one other thing I want to talk about with the receiving corps that I almost missed. There was a little Twitter battle today, and this was a cordial exchange between Alex Bachman and Darius Slayton. I thought it was kind of funny. Apparently, Darius Slayton finally followed Bachman on Instagram after 3 years. And then Bachman tweeted something about that. And then Slayton tweeted back saying, man, Bachman has a 100-yard game, 2+ touchdowns, and he's coming out here not just trying to get me fired, but trying to get me canceled on social media as well. A little funny exchange back and forth. But I do think there is some truth to Bachman potentially unseating Slayton, right? When you have guys like, at this point, I think Slayton is in the same category as Sills, James, and Bachman. And he was in the same category as Collin Johnson when he was healthy as well. But If you're making over $2.5 million a year as a fifth-round pick in the 2019 draft, and you're in the same category as those guys who are making around $2 million less than you, the decision is easy. You know what to do. Save the money. You get similar production out of these players anyway. I'll never forgive Slayton for that dropping into Washington last year. I will years down the line, but not right now. But I thought that was interesting between Bachman and Slayton. The Giants are already decimated with their depth at O-line and now receiving as well. It's more of a depth issue than anything. It's not like any notable names are out, but you want to have good depth at the receiving core. Now, the third player the Giants claimed off waivers, cornerback Harrison Hand off of waivers from the Minnesota Vikings, a player who was a fifth-round pick back in the 2020 NFL draft. Local guy from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, who has a connection with current Giants defensive line coach Andre Patterson, who was the former defensive line coach / assistant coach to Mike Zimmer with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Hand being a corner, Patterson being a D-line coach, they didn't directly work together, but there is a connection there. Now, Hand was amongst the Vikings roster cuts this week. He's 5'11", 185 pounds. He has the most experience out of any player the Giants claimed. He's played in a significant amount of games, 23 to be exact, over 2 years. One start for the Vikings. As a rookie, Hand played in 14 games, starting 1. Had 17 tackles, 3 pass breakups, and 1 interception off Drew Brees on Christmas Day. Fun fact. And this past season, his playing time dipped a little bit, just 9 games with 5 tackles. Wasn't much of a factor, more of a special teams player because the Vikings, they got Cam Dantzler on board. They brought in Patrick Peterson in the offseason, so their secondary improved a little bit last year, but this year they just got a lot better with drafting Andrew Booth. I mean, they have Lewis Seen in the secondary at the safety position as well. There just wasn't enough mouths to feed, and Harrison Hand is now a New York Giant, which I'm happy about. I do think out of these 3 players the Giants claimed, I think Hand is realistically the only one that has a legit shot to make this roster. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how he looks in the game against the New York Jets. Other news, this one, not too surprising, but definitely caught me a little bit off guard. The Giants have cut tight end Jordan Akins. Now, I did read somewhere today the Giants did work out Tanner Hudson, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer tight end. Doesn't have a whole lot of NFL experience, but he has played the last couple of years with the Bucs. And before the cut of Jordan Akins, he was just one of 4 Giants tight ends on this roster. Daniel Bellinger, Chris Myrick, and Austin Allen being the other 3 after the Giants moved Ricky Seals-Jones and Andre Miller to season-ending injured reserve. So the Giants went from 6 tight ends down to 4 and now down to 3. So it's just a real shame. And I kind of saw Akins coming as a cut, but not this soon. I thought he would be a cut-down day casualty. Dan Duggan, beat reporter from The Athletic, did tweet on Sunday that Akins didn't get in the game until late against the Bengals in that second half. Not a good sign for him. And, he was brought in earlier in the offseason. He previously played for Andy Bischoff with the Houston Texans. Bischoff, the tight ends coach there. Now he's here with the Giants, but he was more of a receiving tight end. And he really couldn't do both receiving and blocking efficiently. If you're getting out-snapped by Austin Allen, all due respect to him, undrafted free agent out of Nebraska, that's an issue. Jordan Akins coming off 4 seasons with the Texans. Last year had 24 catches for over 200 yards. Not good enough. It's looking like the Giants might bring in Tanner Hudson within the coming days this week. We will see. A physical might be pending. I know Art Stapleton was talking about that, but just 3 tight ends right now. I'm concerned about depth. There's going to be a 4th one brought in for the final preseason game, and it's likely going to be Tanner Hudson replacing Jordan Akins on this roster. So there's been a lot of moving parts over the last 2 days. We talked about Darian Beavers going on season-ending IR. That really sucks. I just mentioned the other 2 tight ends that got hurt. Nick Gates and Matt Pert won't be ready for the start of the year as expected, moving to the PUP list, meaning they'll each miss at least the first 4 games of the season. The Giants roster now sits at 81 players if you include the international player Roy Mbedeka. The Giants need to cut 27 players by next Tuesday. It'll likely all happen after the game against the New York Jets. It'll likely happen on that Tuesday. Now, the Giants are going to practice against the Jets on Thursday. Going to be very interesting. Head coach for the Jets, Rob Saleh, mentioned that Jet starters will play anywhere between a quarter and a half on Sunday night against Big Blue. I'm really interested to see how many starters play for the Giants and how long they play, being the amount of injuries that we've seen. But can't be afraid of getting hurt. This is the NFL. Giants have made a lot of moves over the last few days. And, despite a lot of negativity that's been flowing around the fan base, I'm going to remain positive and optimistic. I hope that the Giants get their depth back on the offensive line for this game against the Jets. I'd like to see Ben Bredeson and Jamil Douglas be available. I do think those are the 2 top interior backup linemen we have. I think that David Sills is going to earn his roster spot. I'd love to see Bachman back out there as well and compete. It'll be interesting to see. Do the Giants keep 7 wide? Do the Giants keep 6 corners now? It'll be very interesting to see what happens. Folks, before I go, just want to remind you all to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Big Blue Avenue if you like this content. Also follow us on Instagram and Twitter for live up-to-date news regarding your New York Football Giants. Remember to ring the bell on this YouTube channel for notifications. Hit the like button if you like what you watch. Give us a little thumbs up. Appreciate all the love and support. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.